Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome back to the Solarium of Stanley Kubrick here on the Houselights podcast. I am John Mills, and I'm joined here on Houselights as we continue this exploration of Stanley Kubrick of the 1960s with my dear friends Tristan Riddell and Darren Moser. Gentlemen, welcome to the War Room. Please remember to mind your manners.
Yes, no fighting or arguing about topics of podcasting in the War Room.
Exactly. I expect decorum. And of course, people should know then if we're in the War Room, we are talking about Stanley Kubrick's classic film, one of the first 25 films selected for the National Registry Film Preservation. I always forget all the words that go into that, but the one that saves movies. It was one of the first 25 selected, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. So let's get right into it, gentlemen, because this is, let's not beat around the bush. This is one of those movies like Citizen Kane where it's going to be really interesting to bring our own perspectives to the discussion, but this is a movie that has been long acknowledged and discussed over many iterations, releases, mistaken aspect ratios on Laserdisc and all of those sorts of things. So let's just kick it off with the question we always love to ask before the doomsday device goes off. Tristan, when was the first time that you were exposed to Dr. Strangelove?
The first time I ever saw this one was actually in a high school film class. It was a really cool class. I really enjoyed it. It was the only thing that we had any related to anything kind of entertainment or cultural towards movies or anything like that. And the teacher was super old, like just on the verge of retiring, and he showed us some really good movies, and this was one of them. And I actually got a copy of this film on VHS because, like, at the my was it my senior year? It was either my junior year or senior year. But when I took the class, that was his last year before he retired. He gave me all of his teaching materials. Like, he gave me just 3 boxes full of books and movies that he used to show his classes.
Tristan, you will take my place. And then he faded away into nothing.
It very much felt like that. Like, we definitely had a connection. I mean, for obvious reasons. I mean, like, I was absolutely in love with film, and I knew a lot about it, and he could tell that I was really interested and wanted to learn as much as I could. And total tangent, like, one we got to talk about, we got to take a decade, like an area of film, and give a presentation on it. And I was in the 20s and dressed up like the Tramp, like Charlie Chaplin, to give my presentation, and he absolutely loved it. He was just over the moon. But anyway, so he was really excited about this film. Like, he loved this film. Like, he was all like, even though he'd seen this 1,000 times, he was in the back of the room, and every once in a while you'd hear like a just him, just like giving an old knee slapper. And so that was the first and probably only time I watched it, was when I was in high school, and then once in preparation for this podcast.
Well, heaven knows it wasn't the last time you dressed as a tramp. Darren, when did you first come across Dr. Strangelove?
It's a very similar story. It was definitely film school for me in college. And I don't think it was a class, though. So I lived with 4 other film students in an apartment. So guess what we did? We made films and we watched films and we listened to soundtrack. It's like all we did all the time. And so I believe they are the ones who introduced me to Dr. Strangelove, saying, "Oh, you haven't seen it? Oh, let's make it a night. This will be what we watch." And yeah, it was such a fun, it's a fun movie. It's got good comedy in it. It's black and white, but it uses black and white in such a good way. It's not just like, oh, we're going to put your camera in the black and white mode, and it doesn't really do anything because you're not actually thinking about light and where your camera is and all of that. And I know we'll get more into the Kubrick-ness of this movie, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Peter Sellers 3 times over. So it was a good time. I learned to love the bomb that day.
Well, and Peter Sellers, and we'll discuss this in a little bit, was supposed to be in it 4 times over, but pulled his own fast one to get out of doing that. But my first exposure to Dr. Strangelove was actually performing the phone call of President Merkin Muffley in one of my speech and debate tournaments that I went to in high school. The lady who was the speech and debate coach, she said, "Hey, John, you do great with this. Here, let's see you go into a tournament with that." And so I read it, I practiced it. I had no idea what it was from. I had no idea what it came from. And I read it, and you're a teenager and you haven't seen the movie and you're trying to perform this scene. And I remember having fun with it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. And I moved on. And then in college, watched it in a film analysis class. And it was the infamous Laserdisc edition where they had the matting change throughout the entire thing, so that there were all of these things. And I remember the professor at the time talking about, this is Kubrick making a comment on this thing, and the open mat here indicates that Kubrick recognizes the artifice of parody, blah 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 blah, only to come to find out that guy was talking completely out of his ass and was basically inferring reasoning in an erroneous transfer that was made. So we all came to it, it seems, at roughly the same time. We were teenagers. The world was crazy. We wanted to learn about the fear of nuclear war and all of those sorts of things. But coming into it as a satire, its source material is Red Alert, a thriller novel, and so we find once again Kubrick adapting another work and making it his own. But what I want to hit on first, Darren, you mentioned how this was in black and white, and the first movie we watch in this series is in beautiful Technicolor, and it's Spartacus. And now we've got 2 films in a row in black and white. What do you think black and white brings to Dr. Strangelove as a decision instead of shooting it in color?
Well, I think black and white goes hand in hand with shot composition, because when you take the not that grays aren't color, but when you take the color aspect out, you start to look way more at the silhouette of people, how they're placed against the background, the framing, the tangents of objects striking the edge of the frame. All of these things, I think, become more pronounced. And especially when you have a director like Kubrick, and not that all directors aren't like this, but Kubrick is I put the camera where I want it for a reason. Like every shot, like I can't believe, I mean, maybe not 100% of the shots, but most of the shots you can infer that he is specifically choosing exactly what he's showing, not like, oh, just put it over there, maybe a wide shot. Like I can't imagine that. But this generates so many iconic moments in this movie. From probably the most one is the wide downward through the oval shot of the war room, which is just very iconic. But even in the other places, the way that in the general's office, with it's almost kind of shot like a play, like it's shot very much from one direction. We always kind of see that back wall with Captain Mandrake and the general, or not general, colonel, whatever he was, the one who goes crazy. But it's kind of very singular in its focus. And then you have the cramped quarters of the mostly black interior of the airplane. So you just get all of these great things. That, not that it wouldn't work in color, but it works really well as a black and white movie.
I agree. I think there are some other factors that go into that. I think there are certain composite shots, that work better as a result of being in black and white. I think that it's more forgiving of the plane effects, if you will, that happen. I think color would have been far.
You mean that
less
wasn't a model? Because I'm pretty sure it was a model. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Wait.
Right. I'm so sorry to
the
burst
model
your
looked
bubble
good.
there.
It was really the backdrop. That's because it's like,
Yes,
we know
right.
the motion, and it's like it was enough that we knew what was going on, but it was probably the weakest part of the whole movie was that
But
effect.
but Darren, you mentioned the photography and everything, and of course the legendary question mark Gil Taylor, who later went on to lens Star Wars with George Lucas, lenses this. And so the ultimate question always comes back, Tristan. We know that Kubrick told his DP in Spartacus to just sit down and let him do the work. Do you detect a director of photography helping and refining Kubrick here, or do you detect Kubrick telling the director of photography, "I know what I want, put the camera here, and this is what we're going to do"?
This feels like very much Kubrick. I really do believe that. I think I mean, when you look at the other stuff that the cinematographer has done and the ability to adapt to that director or that style or that genre, because we've seen so much of this in Lolita and so much of this in later pictures with other DPs. It's kind of how we talked about with Christopher Nolan about when Wally left him to go do his own thing, direct his own pictures. We were like, oh man, what is a Nolan film going to look like without Wally? And then the next one came out and you're like, oh, it looks the same because that's what Nolan wants and that's what he's going to get. And so I feel like when you have someone who's such a powerful force, whether you like him or not, when you have someone who's such a powerful force like Kubrick, no matter what cinematographer he has, he's going to get the look and feel that he wants.
Let me follow up with this question. Do you think that by this point in his career, a director of photography who signs on with Kubrick knows what he's getting into and is just happy to go along for the ride? Or do you think that Taylor showed up and was like, no, I'm going to get to do my own thing, and it was a rude awakening for him?
I that is my guess. I don't think Kubrick was the name that we know he wasn't the name that he is now, because this is pre Full Metal Jacket. This is pre Shining.
Well, it's pre 2001 more than anything.
Yeah, pre 2001, absolutely. So like this is, yeah, no, I that is my complete and utter guess that the DP showed up and it's just like, oh, okay, I guess I'm just a pair of hands.
But what a glorious pair of hands you can be, considering a previous one won, an Oscar for sitting in a chair.
That's why he joined. He's like, hey, I get paid. I don't have to do anything, and I can win an Oscar. I mean, that's a pretty sweet gig if you think about it.
Just work in all the coffee I can drink, and baby, we got a stew going.
Take a sip of humility, and you're good.
So, Darren, coming back around with this, we unquestionably say we look at this. I would say that of the three we've looked at so far, this is the first one where I immediately look at it and I say, I can see what Stanley Kubrick goes for in a movie. I get this, right? From shot one, I'm like, okay, this looks like Stanley Kubrick. And I would argue that the absolutely biting, intelligent satire, like the Kubrick in this movie seems to really be sitting comfortably in a chair, whereupon he's looking down at society and culture and pronouncing a loud judgment on an aspect of it. Do you feel that same energy coming through it? Because for all of the comedy in this doesn't feel like somebody coming at it humorously, but somebody coming at it with a real point to make.
Yeah, I can definitely kind of collaborate with that feeling of Kubrick sitting there. He knows now what he wants. He knows where he's going to put the camera, where he's wants his actors. And obviously they contribute to their roles, but yeah, this is by far a Kubrick movie. If you want to look at, Kubrick isms, it's like, okay, it's these kinds of shots. It's the kind of that Kirk light on someone's eyes, where it's, I mean, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think this is, just definitely knows, a big Trek fan. But yeah, I think, and I also feel it's a Kubrick thing. The fact that, yeah, just like you said, John, the writing is very sharp, but And it doesn't, even though Sellers has a lot that he's doing, it doesn't feel like that porch scene that we saw in Lolita, where we could tell, like, okay, he was given like 5 minutes with the script and he's just kind of ad-libbing it. We're like, what is going on? There was none of that. Like, if a take happened like that, it didn't make it to screen.
Right.
But yeah, and I mean, gosh, you got some jewels. You got, Gentlemen You Can't Fight in Here. This is The War Room. Like, oh my gosh, it's funny every time. Every time.
Yes.
George, I laugh hysterically almost at every single thing that George C. Scott says. It's like, sir, you can't let him in here. He'll see everything. He'll see the big board.
Yeah. You know what? I'm glad you mentioned
George. Call me. You can't call me here. Oh yeah, honey, I'm gonna make you the future Mrs. Baker or something.
Turgid.
Turgidson.
Sorry.
Turgid.
Yeah, and that is, I'm glad we got to George C. Scott, because according to legend and so on, Kubrick kind of tricks George C. Scott into playing this role the way that he wanted. And then it was after the release that George C. Scott said, "Oh, okay, I get it. Right. Like, this wasn't really what George
He's kind
C.
of a
Scott
caricature. He's not really a person. None of these people are people."
Right. And so I want to ask you, Tristan, as a director, Kubrick really a lot of times he can get maybe justifiably dragged for being a bit of a Sturm and Drang guy. You didn't give me exactly what I wanted. We're going to do 150,000 takes until I get exactly what I wanted. Do you think that benefits this movie? Do you feel the hand of a director with that laser focus getting those specific performances out of people?
I didn't really feel the X-Acto knife, and I think that's a credit to him, the director, and I think it's also a credit to the actors, because with the George C. Scott stuff, like I never would have guessed what you just said about him being tricked into giving that type of performance or giving that kind of corny one-liners. Like I really, it really felt like every single person was in on the joke. And whether that is a credit to the director or the actors or both, I don't know. But I cannot say exactly. I can't speak exactly to that, because to me, this felt like a bunch of professionals getting together who understood what was going on, what their assignment was, and showed up to work. And I think it really, they all pulled it off, and they pulled it off flawlessly. Like when you look at, even with Ripper, like it would have been so easy for that actor to play Ripper with chewing the scenery and twirling his mustache. But that scene when he's talking about, have you ever seen a commie drink a glass of water? And he's like, well, no, I can't say I have. It's just like, and then, like, they go and like talking about vodka, like he believes in what he's saying. Like, that's how crazy he is. He doesn't think what he's saying is crazy. He thinks he's the sanest man in the room.
Oh, well,
and
yeah. I mean, Sterling Hayden is definitely the right guy to get for that sort of thing. He has that type of voice and presence that's going on there. But what's really great about General Ripper's conspiracy theories is that the U.S. government, the military, the intelligence community actually would do things like massively fluoridate an enemy camp's water to make them more docile. So you can see where a tiny, something like that, somebody could be like, well, wait a minute, if they're doing that and they put fluoride in their water, right? And then there is, I think what it is that there is an examination there in that character of how the whole point of the movie is that the people running things are buffoons who don't know their butt from a hole in the ground, and you see them do these horrific things. Why wouldn't you think that they're trying to pull these sorts of things off? Like, it's not that big a leap. Like, he's obviously gone too far with everything, but you can understand he's been immersed in this. It's eventually going to break somebody and make them go nuts. And Darren, I think that I'm of the opinion that what gets overlooked a lot with Dr. Strangelove, the film, is that Ripper is a character who is more a comment on what's happening to all of us under these pressures of the Cold War. And I think that I do think that Hayden's performance, Tristan, you rightly point out, he delivers it exactly the way it needs to be. I think Hayden gets overshadowed by Sellers, overshadowed by Scott. I don't know that that's necessarily fair. Do you feel that there are any other actors who get overshadowed by the Sellers, the multiple roles of Sellers and some of the the showier aspects of this? Do you think that some of the supporting performances get lost, or do you think everybody gets a fair amount of recognition for what they've done here?
It's tricky because there's not actually a lot of characters in this movie, and like 30% of them are Peter Sellers. So, gosh, I would say, yeah. It's interesting again to talk about Hayden as Brigadier General Ripper, because that's an interesting pairing, because he is playing the super straight man, but Peter Sellers as the RAF exchange officer is also kind of playing the straight man. So it works, but it works in a different way versus the president and the general. The president is the straight man and the general is the funny man. Like, he is, going off the rails. So yeah, I think, like you said, Sellers is overshadowing him because he's almost not playing the right type for that kind of engagement, or what we're used to. I mean, obviously you can play it with two straight men in a situation. It's just a very different vibe. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be hard to say and pick out other characters, because again, there's just only a handful of people really in this. I mean, we only know or notice James Earl Jones in the B-52 bomber because we know who James Earl Jones is. But pretty much anyone else in that cockpit, and they're basically an extra, like next to King Kong, because he is such a strong personality and nuance that maybe there's a little overshadowing there.
And Tristan, how happy do you think that Slim Pickens was when Peter Sellers refused to play the role of Major T.J. King Kong? Because one can argue that Slim Pickens winds up with one of the most iconic scenes in film history. I don't think you would even argue it. It is one of the most iconic scenes in film history. Like, how happy must an actor be to get that call and wind up getting this opportunity? What luck of the draw, right?
Yeah, I would love to find out more. I'm sure there was interviews with Slim, after this and well after this, about how he felt about being able to ride the bomb down to doomsday. And you're right. I mean, it's iconic. It's permeated throughout our pop culture. I mean, I know this sounds stupid, but don't make fun of me, but I always think about Steve Buscemi in Armageddon when he's on top of the nuke on the asteroid.
I just want to feel the power between my legs, brother.
Yeah, he's like, I just want to feel the power between my legs, brother. Like Slim Pickens in that movie. Never mind. Like, it's so funny. Like, it would have been one way to, like, you easily could have had a guy gripping onto it for dear life and screaming to his death. But no, like, you have a guy in a cowboy hat, waving his arms in the air.
After he got it out of his safe, he kept the cowboy hat in the safe for when it was time.
And he goes down wooing, and it's just he's inviting death, and he finds it hilarious, and he sees it as one last ride, and it's it in that in itself, just that one little moment. Yeah, we think it's funny. Yeah, we think it's iconic, and it's an indelible moment that's in our brains. But that moment in itself is commentary on where we are at the human race when we're staring atomic death in the face. Whether it's, whether it's through atomic death, through disease, famine, climate, like war, whatever it is, like so much of the time, like some of us are just gonna go, what can you do? Might as well enjoy the ride. And we're shaking our cowboy hats as we're wooing into doomsday.
Well, that's a really chipper way to look at it. But I think also is what's of note is that according to the Book of Knowledge, um, the part was apparently originally written with John Wayne himself in mind, and he turned it down immediately, according to a biographer of Terry Southern.
I cannot imagine that.
I can.
Well,
oh
that
man,
is
I so can. I can absolutely imagine John Wayne in that role.
and then
It would be
apparently-
awkward and delicious.
Apparently, Dan Blocker from Bonanza was approached to play the part and rejected it. And then so Pickens was not right away the choice. And in a delightful anecdote, apparently, when Slim Pickens showed up on set, he was dressed the way he normally dresses, normally dressed, I should say, with a cowboy hat, fringed jacket, and boots. And everybody thought he had gone so far as to show up in character. And it took them a moment to realize, oh no, that's just who he is. That's like, he's not putting on an act.
His
That's
name is
just
Slim
who he
Pickens,
is.
guys. That's his name.
Yeah.
Like
One would argue that he's playing true to brand on that one for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
But one thing that I think is interesting about this in specific is it is such a heavy topic, but at no point does it feel heavy. Darren, do you think that is because of the deftness of the editing? Do you think that it's just is it just the performances, or do you think that things are edited in such a way? Because Kubrick is typically known for making rather lengthy films.
This one was nice and fast. This was like 90 minutes. No, I think the editing, as so far as it is the editing and the story, the fact that we're jumping around between almost these vignettes, like there's maybe 4 or 5 actual locations in this movie, and it interweaves between them flawlessly. Like I never feel like, oh, I wonder what's going on with the president right now. Oh, we're here, we're back, and we're seeing what's happening with Alexei taking pictures with his camera phone and all these things. But and even where you would almost think like the RAF officer. I'd say with Mandrake, I'd say of all the roles, his you could feel like is not needed, but it's less than what's happening on the plane or in the war room. But he's the right place, right time moment, because he has the information and he is able to give the prefix code. But and it shoots up a Coca-Cola machine. But no, I think the editing
private
between
property.
all these moments works really, really well. And it doesn't feel like a fractured story. It feels like, and probably because it's told chronologically, but I think the editing is very, very good.
So, Tristan, I got to ask, when you first saw it or when you watched it this time, did you pick up any commentary on Operation Paperclip and the character of Dr. Strangelove? Do you think that Kubrick was going for a comment on that?
Oh God, no, I didn't get it at all. I was way too young to fully appreciate this movie. I was way too young to get the commentary on Paperclip, on Strangelove. No, absolutely not. Like I think watching it now made me realize that you need some years under your belt to really understand this picture, to really understand this movie and the cynicism behind it. And I mean, and that's what it is. Like usually cynicism is a dirty word, but this is very much a cynical movie with a purpose. And I don't think you can be young and naive with a youthful look on the world and like, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to change the world. Like, no, you're not. Sit down. Like you need to have been defeated a few times. You need to have voted for a fantastic candidate who then gets into a sex scandal. Like you need those kind of disappointments in your life to truly get the humor. Like you have a sick, desperate laugh. Like when you laugh at this stuff, when you fully realize what's happening, and you can't do that as a a 14 or 15-year-old.
So with that in mind, I do agree with you, Tristan. Like this is satire works best when you know a little bit about what it's satirizing. Darren, do you think that Dr. Strangelove still has as relevant a place in modern society, or do you think that this winds up becoming a time capsule movie because people don't relate to the threat of nuclear annihilation in quite the same way that they did, until arguably the 1990s when people relaxed just a tiny bit about it?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say time capsule just because there's the broader strokes of the us versus them. You can easily interpret, the foreign power, to be whatever you want. And my goodness, they've made enough movies about the Cold War and all that we all, even if we didn't live it, we know what happened, or we know we've been preached at about that. So I think. But it's talking about satire, it's interesting because I recently watched Starship Troopers again, which, I mean, my God, you want to talk about satire? But that's satire in a very different way.
But see, what's interesting, I'm glad you mentioned Starship Troopers, is there were a ton of people that didn't get that was satire.
Yeah, they didn't, and it's like it's really obvious.
It wasn't to people of the time. I remember when that movie got released, and it was the first R-rated movie I ever saw where they were actually checking your ID, not just when you bought the ticket, but they checked your ID when you walked into the theater. They were not allowing anity at the theater
you just
I went
wanted
to
to
under
know
the age
more,
of 17.
John. That's okay. It's okay
right?
to know more.
Well, and a lot of people don't get that that the source material book by Heinlein is really dark satire. I knew somebody who thought it was very pro-fascist, so that's why sort of like the satirical
it
side
is,
of it.
but it's
No,
it is because
Heinlein.
it is
Heinlein
because
was making a comment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean that in the context of, the
point of view of the
play,
characters is what's being pilloried in that, and it's a contemporary of this film, like a lot of,
I would say so.
A lot of Cold War and Vietnam
nice double
commentary.
Feature.
Yeah, well, you know what? It would be a great double feature. But what's interesting, and I didn't know this until I read a little bit about it this time, or if I knew it, I forgot it. You learn stuff and then you forget it, and then you're like, did I know that? I don't know. Tristan, did you know that the release of this film was delayed because of the Kennedy assassination? I did not know that until I did more research on it.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know much about the behind the scenes of this movie.
Well, they did in fact delay the release of the film because of the Kennedy assassination, so that it was released in late January 1964. And the line we all love when they're going through the survival kit, if they have to ditch the plane, and he says a fellow could have a pretty good weekend in Vegas with all that stuff. The line as was originally recorded was Dallas. But because of the Kennedy assassination, somebody wisely said, we're going to change that one.
Yeah.
Seems a little touchy at this point. But the original...
It
also makes more sense.
It
does.
It does, but the original reference to Dallas apparently survived in the English audio of the French subtitled version that was released. So they got every version but that one. So I guess they figured the French didn't care quite as much about Kennedy getting shot. So that's the only thing
French,
I can say.
They get it all. The unrated cuts.
That's right.
They get everything.
I should fly to France every time a movie is released that I want to see, so I can see the really unadulterated, like Highlander, the director's cut type of stuff going on. I mean, come on, guys. So all of this stuff put together, Darren, in terms of the musical choices, the film ends very famously showing the apocalypse happening, and you hear an audio track of people singing, I'll be seeing you, and
we'll meet again.
Yeah, we'll meet again.
Don't know when.
The original ending for this involved a pie fight in the war room.
Oh man!
Which Kubrick deemed unusable because people were actually laughing and having a good time during the pie fight. And the mood was, that doesn't seem like that would have been the best note. But I would be the last one.
That does make sense a little bit because there was that huge buffet in the war room that I always kind of
Mhm.
felt like was kind of weird. But if you now imagine them bringing out a course of pies, that would lead to a pie fight. Now, I didn't know about the pie fight. I didn't know that Peter Sellers was meant to play King Kong before now, that was his unofficial fourth role, which again, I'm very glad he didn't, because I don't think that was the right role for him. And he's got plenty to do on his plate now. But yeah, music wise, and then you have the opening, the opening track, the end track, and yeah, you just have this. I would say the music feels like a time capsule, not the story, not the plot, but in a way, it just makes me feel like this is a 60s movie. I don't know what about it. Like, obviously not that these tracks came out only in the 60s or anything like that, but I think that it just has it has that sense of, bookending this type of story.
I want to say something, because when you talked about the pie fight, like that really struck a chord with me, because like when it's absurd, it's crazy. I think it totally could have fit in this film, about like a bunch of politicians in the war room where the world's about to be destroyed, and so they're having a food fight instead of doing what needs to be done. That in itself is a comment, and I think it would, like I said, like I think it would fit in this film. But I'm glad that they didn't, because it definitely, like you said, changes the tone and alters the tone, where people are having a good time and laughing, as opposed to explosions and we'll meet again. There was one time I directed a one act, and I cannot for the life of me remember the name of the one act, but it's about a husband and wife fighting. Like, they start off like really lovey-dovey, and then like as the act goes on, they start bringing out more and more crap about the relationship, and they just start going at each other's throats, and it ends with them kind of realizing that the relationship is over and just kind of staring at the audience, and then fade to black. I wanted to end, it's a comedy, and so I wanted to end on a funny note. And so at the very end, like right before the lights go out, like I have them jump each other's bones, like just like start making out again. I thought it was hilarious. And my producer at the time saw that, and he said, he's like, that's not in the script. I was like, yeah, but it's not in the script. He says, he's like, what tone are you going for here? What do you want the audience to walk away with? Do you want just a cheap laugh, or do you want them to actually think about what the characters just said? And that always stuck with me, ever since I was a young man to today, is that like, yeah, you can get a reaction, and it may even fit within your theme, but you have to ask yourself, what do you want the audience to walk away with at the very, very end? And this kind of ending is exactly how he should have ended it, and not a pie in the face.
Tristan, I'm going to ask you a point blank question. Do you feel that Dr. Strangelove lends itself to a sequel?
No?
Interesting, because Kubrick did, in fact, have a sequel in mind called Son of Strangelove, and even had in his mind so far as to apparently openly be considering Terry Gilliam as the director to inherit the mantle and direct his follow-up film, which would have been set in underground bunkers where Dr. Strangelove had taken refuge with a large group of women. Asking you, you're happy that it didn't end with a pie fight. Are you happy that we never got that film?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes things just need to be left alone. It's
Oh.
fine not to develop a franchise.
Oh, no. Well, you're not working in Hollywood anytime soon, that's for sure. So, Darren, just as a final thoughts sort of thing, as we're closing up. I mean, it's always a fun discussion to talk about Dr. Strangelove. This is
It's
one of
very fun.
those amazing films that just everything seems to work and everything seems to hit its mark. But the dreaded question, is there anything in this film that you feel was indulgent that could have been cut? Or do you think that there's anything that should have been developed more? Any trims at all?
I guess the main thing that comes to mind is I never really got the phone call getting change out of the machine. I feel like that is a moment where the energy kind of just stopped. Like yeah, I get that. It's like, oh no, he needs to get the information to the president. Let's throw these 3 curveballs at him. And it's like, I get what you're doing, but I think they could have not included any of that and maybe had to walk like half a mile to a phone booth because everything was cut off or something simpler. I don't feel like that. Again, not that it's a bad scene. It just didn't feel in time with how the movie was progressing at that moment. I think there was another way they probably could have done that. Or maybe even some of the parts with the Russian ambassador. I feel like once he got in the room, they didn't know what to do with him. Like, it's funny when, George C. Scott's like freaking out that he's going to get in there. But once he's in there, I mean, yeah, they have a little bit of a scuffle. I don't know if it's implied that he had like 2 cameras maybe, or if the general did plant the other camera. It's trying to tug at this thread, but I don't know. I felt like that you already have these 2 giant performances in that room. There's really not room for anything else that's going on. So maybe a little trimming with the Soviet, and maybe kicking out the. I mean, everyone loves the Coca-Cola company line. It's a funny line, but I don't feel like that scene is necessary. Although now we're approaching like Disney animated classic length. So like for as far as time goes, this movie goes very quickly.
I would I would not cut the Coca-Cola moment because I think it's important to underscore that soldier cares about Coca-Cola's private property in the face of Armageddon, as if
True.
these are equally weighted concerns in this moment. But what I probably would have cut was the Coca-Cola spraying in his face. That's where I feel like it's like, oh, that's the part of the joke that goes a little far. But that's the one energy moment that I would give. But what about you, Tristan? What do you think needs to be cut, or is this something that where you wouldn't cut anything?
I think I agree with both of you, where I would the Soviet wrestling and planting of the camera just kind of makes my eyes roll a little bit. And I really like the Coca-Cola joke because of what you just said, John, but the spraying in his face goes a little bit too far. I think one thing that I probably would change just a little bit is Peter Sellers and Ripper together. I feel like I feel like Mandrake needed to have a little bit more urgency and a little bit more frantic. I feel like that's probably a Sellers performance that could have been dropped and gotten somebody else. I'm not saying he did a bad job, but I just feel like that character needs to be a little bit more frantic with Ripper. Like, he needs to try and convince him more. Like, there needed to be more of a physical struggle. Like, there needed to be. It just felt like he was going along with it too well and too much for Armageddon to be happening right around the corner. So again, like, I am nitpicking here, like with the Soviet wrestle and with the Coke in the face. Like, I'm very much nitpicking.
Well, nitpicking is what you do when you have a podcast and you're talking about film. So I'm not going to fault you for it because we all do it from time to time. Uh, I think I've already said, maybe the Coca-Cola squirting, I'd cut that, and maybe there's 1 or 2 things. I get what you're saying with Mandrake's energy, and I think that is probably just this weird sort. This is how the Brits are. It's almost like a parody of a British person.
Yeah. I feel like if he
role.
wasn't British, he would be more manic. Like,
yeah, I
that's
think
part
right.
of the character.
It's supposed to be. Again, we're in the face of Armageddon.
Oh no, stiff upper lip, carry on in Armageddon.
Right.
It's like that's
right. We're in the face
chip.
of Armageddon, but that's no reason not to behave like a proper gentleman, sort of thing. So I have a feeling I know where this part of the show where we rate things is going to go, but let's just go ahead and formalize it. Darren, how many doomsday devices do you award Dr. Strangelove?
Oh, I'm supposed to tell you about the Doomsday Device? Oh, tell you about the Doomsday Device.
We were going to announce it in 2 days.
It makes so much more sense because then you would have your Doomsday Device. I have mine. We're all equally assured destruction. Yes, I got to give it 4. It's a fun movie, highly rewatchable. The performances are amazing. George C. Scott, like if you think George C. Scott, you know him from Christmas Carol, Patton, and Doctor Strangelove. Like obviously more than that, but those are the big 3. Like this is one of his big 3 performances, and it's funny. I mean, I'm cracking up now thinking about the big board. You know, he's got to see the big. Like, it's still funny, even though it's not that big of a joke, because he delivers it with such seriousness.
Like in the tone of his voice, like he goes up an octave. Like
yeah,
he's
like,
the big board.
Sir, it's a big board right there. But it's like if he could, he'd like start to draw the curtains across it, which obviously don't exist. But it's also really funny watching this movie after having watched War Games a couple weeks ago, because there are some slight parallels between the two, and a very, very different tonal movie than this. If Matthew Broderick snuck in there and saw the big board, I don't think that would be good. But no, I mean, yeah, on our course through the 60s from Spartacus to now, he's just getting better. Like we've said, we're really seeing Kubrickness. Like we can start to taste it and define what that is. And let me just tell you, we're going to get a lot of that next week with 2001. A lot of very decided shots, angles, everything. It's going to be okay, Tristan. It's going to be okay. But yeah, I'm giving it 4 Doomsdays.
And personally, I look forward to Tristan's suffering next week. It's going to give me life, as the kids say. Tristan, what do you rate Dr. Strangelove?
I give it 4 hidden cameras, like Darren. Like I think this is a great film. It's iconic. It is a part of our culture. It's a part of film culture. You cannot call yourself a lover of film if you haven't seen this movie. And George C. Scott is absolutely my favorite part of this film, far and away the best part of the movie. And I lose it. Like when he says, he's like, well, I don't think it's quite fair to condemn a whole program because of a single slip up, sir. A slip up that's causing Armageddon. You know, like it's just, yeah, I think this is great. I like that it's black and white, because it brings out that, even though it's in the 60s, and I mean Lolita was in black and white too, but I feel like this movie needed to be black and white because it draws on that negative nostalgia of the 50s, of the atomic panic, and how, I mean, it was alive and well in the 60s as well, but it was introduced in the 50s, really, about like, you know, like tucking under your desk and everything like that. So there's so much about this movie that got right. There's a few things that are eye rolly things, some things that don't work, some things that could be trimmed down a little bit, but overall, I mean, 4 stars. I know that some people are probably screaming and saying, no, this is a 5-star film, but for me, 4 stars, fantastic, one of the greats.
I am internally screaming, but maintaining it, because this is a solid 5. This is a film that I've loved since the first time I saw it. It is a film that sticks with you. It is one of those things where, again, you can nitpick and you can make sort of like technical, this could be tweaked, this could be, but 5 stars doesn't mean, you know, that you know, there won't be a truly, absolutely, flawlessly perfect film until the Lord himself decides to make one, basically. And so, as far as human capability goes, this is the summit. This is one of those ones where when people talk about it in the conversation of we got to preserve it, it's one of the greatest films of all time, you got to see it before you die, I look at it and I go, yep, that's true. And it's for all of the reasons that they're naming. And so, yeah, that is a 5 Doomsday Devices from yours truly for Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, which of course tees us up, as Darren hinted previously, to the science fiction film that changed the trajectory of science fiction for all time. and is a touchstone film that nobody can stop talking about, and everybody listed as an inspiration as they went into the sci-fi revival of the 1970s. 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.